All right. Thank you everyone for being here today. Welcome distinguished speakers and teachers to the webinar number 16, Project-Based Learning in English Language Teaching. This webinar series is proudly brought to you by the K-12 Professional Development Special Interest Group with the support, consultation, and guidance from the VietTESOL Association and Regional English Language Office, U.S. Embassy in Hanoi, Vietnam, as well as the sponsorship from the British Council, London, UK, Longman Pearson, Vietnam, Isaac Cleverlearn, Hanoi, and Talk in English. There are four main themes in our webinar series, namely English language teaching or ELT methodologies, using information and communication technologies or ICT in ELT, testing and assessment, and professional development. We have organized 15 webinars so far, and in each webinar, there are useful and practical sharings from the featured speakers, university lecturers, and K-12 teachers from all across Vietnam. All the information, contents, and recordings of these webinars can be found and downloaded from the webinar forum at the VietTESOL website. First of all, let me introduce about myself. My name is Yến Trần, and I was an English lecturer at Thái Nguyên University. It is my honor to be the host today. Also, it is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Lee Cao as a secretary today. Ms. Lee Cao, can you introduce by yourself a little bit?
Thank you, Ms. Yến Trần. Hello, all speakers and participants. My name is Khăn Lee. I'm recently a primary teacher from Ho Chi Minh City. It's a big honor to be here, and I'm ready to help you if you need further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee Cao. Another secretary of our webinar today is Ms. Quỳnh Tô. And so Ms. Lee Cao and Ms. Quỳnh Tô will be the people who work behind the scenes, who contribute to our webinar today. Before we start our webinar, let me quickly remind you of our housekeeping rules. Number one, during the webinar, please keep your microphone muted. Number two, during the webinar, if you have any questions or have any comments you want to share with the speakers, just feel free to type in the chat box, and we will try to address all the questions in the Q&A session after all the presentations. And the most important thing is, by the end of our presentation, there will be a small quiz to receive an electronic certificate. So stay tuned until the very end of our presentation of our webinar to get a certificate as a proof of attendance of your webinar today. One more time, thank you for registering and making your time for the webinar today. I believe we will all learn valuable lessons from our experts today. All right, last but not least, let me thank to our honored guests and featured speakers who contribute to our success today, Dr. Linh Phùng, Ms. Hồng Đinh, and Ms. Ngoan Phạm. They are all successful educators and teachers who are experienced in teaching English from the USA, Vietnam, and other countries. Let's just move on to our webinar with no more waiting time. As English teachers, have you ever applied project in your English class? What are some practical principles or guidelines to organize a project successfully in the classroom? Let's get started with the first presentation with Dr. Linh Phùng. Dr. Linh Phùng is currently working as a director of the English language program at Chatham University, where she teaches international students from all over the world. She's also the founder of EduLink International with the mobile app EduLink Speak and other English language services. She's serving the affiliate Network Professional Council of TESOL International as chair-elect. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Linh Phùng to start her first presentation.
Thank you so much, Ian, for the introduction, and thank you, VietTESOL, for inviting me to talk to you today. My expertise actually is in task-based language teaching, which is somewhat related to project-based. I actually did a dissertation on task-based language teaching with Rod Ellis, and I had the pleasure of hosting him just last week. So one thing to another, I'm going to lead you somewhat to some principles of task-based language teaching as well. So I just shared with you a link to my Padlet throughout the presentation. It would be great if you could contribute some ideas to the link there as well, and I will summarize your ideas at the end of the presentation or later on in a summary. So I would like to maybe share my screen here just to a little bit. I will share my screen, and then I'm gonna go back and forth between my PowerPoint here and my Padlet. So a lot of the information that I have shared will be on Padlet already. What I'm going to talk about today is some definition of project-based learning, some basic principles, as well as my take on some of the projects that I see in the textbooks from the Vietnamese English textbooks from Vietnam. So let me move on just with the first question, the very first question that I would like to hear from you, as well as I would like to share a little bit. These are some of the projects that I see in the textbooks from Vietnam. So why project-based learning? Why are you interested in implementing project-based learning in your classroom? So that's my very first question to you. If you can maybe share a little bit in the chat or on Padlet, I would love to see maybe some responses before I move on. Why are you interested in project-based learning? To keep my students interested. Or have you implemented project-based learning in your classroom? And if so, what benefits have you seen by doing so? Let me see if I see any other responses. Integrates many skills for my students. Yes. Okay, as a would-be teacher, you think that it would help a lot to vary your teaching methods. Yeah. One of the output performances of my students, yes, it's a way for students to produce output. Encourage their collaboration, creativity, and communication. A lot of important 21st century skills, right? Make my students interested in studying English, build the students' confidence. Yeah, so many good reasons, right? So I'm sure that you're motivated to implement, or you have already implemented project-based learning in your classroom, and that's why you're here. And I would like to share some of the reasons here that I have seen being documented in literature as well as shared by teacher. Of course, one of the main reasons is to motivate the students and to keep the students interested, right? So a lot of you have mentioned that one of the motivations is to keep the students interested in their learning. And then another reason, and you have already mentioned it, that I think someone is not muted. Okay. And another reason here, or another motivation here, can be to develop and apply language and content knowledge and skills in an authentic context of a project. So many times when we teach language, we teach discrete items in the language, but by giving students a project, you give students a bigger context, a meaningful context to engage in and to develop and apply their language and content knowledge. As you have already mentioned, also project-based learning provides opportunities for students to develop critical thinking, collaboration, communication, problem solving, as well as self-direction. These are all very important 21st century skills that you have already mentioned. From an SLA perspective, from second language acquisition perspective, what I can see is that these are great opportunities for students to listen to meaningful input, to produce meaningful output. There are opportunities for interaction and feedback as well. And these are very necessary conditions for second language development. Students don't learn language or develop their language skills or communicative competence by just memorizing vocabulary or learning grammatical rules and then trying to apply them. That is not how we learn a language, right? We learn a language through exposure to meaningful input, opportunities for output, interacting with each other, negotiate meaning, and also opportunities to receive feedback. So you already see that there are a lot of opportunities, or there are a lot of good reasons to implement project-based learning. However, I have to say that it is not an easy thing, right? It can be done well or it can be done poorly. So moving on, actually, I'm gonna go back to my Padlet and I'm gonna share my screen from there, because what I would like to do now is to walk you through maybe some of the basic concepts here. So what is project-based learning? And I would like to share, this infographic here and this short definition here. And I'm sure that you already know it, but I will just go through this very quickly as well. So project-based learning is a teaching method in which students gain knowledge and skills by working for an extended period of time to investigate and respond to an authentic, engaging, and complex question, problem, or challenge. So you can see there are a lot of important words here that we need to pay attention to. It has to be over an extended period of time, right? It has to be, students need to respond to an engaging and complex question. So if you look at the chart there are a lot of design elements that are essential for something to be considered a project. Then there needs to be a challenging problem or question for students to handle. And it has to involve sustained inquiry. In this case, it has to happen over an extended period of time. And the issue of authenticity as well here, the question or the problem has to be authentic. Students have choice over how to go about with their project. There has to be reflection during the implementation of the project. And then there will be critique and revision, maybe after feedback from the teachers or from other students. And usually there is some kind of public product as well. So I find this infographic very helpful in thinking about some really essential design elements for a project here. And I would like to move on to this infographic as well. From a standpoint of a teacher, when you implement a project, then what are some important teaching practices here? And as you can see, learning goals are at the center here, and teachers actually have to consider a lot of have to make a lot of considerations here. And I'm not going to go through all of this, but what I can see here is that it is really important to plan and manage activities, right? And then when you give students a project, it doesn't mean that they are on their own. There's a lot of teaching and scaffolding going on as well, and you can also do formative assessments throughout the project. Teachers also need to engage with the students and coach them during the process. So actually, when you implement a project, it takes a lot of planning and a lot of scaffolding and instruction from the teachers. Moving on, there is this idea of projects as a dessert course or a main course. In project-based learning, project has to be the main course, not the dessert. What does this mean? I'm just showing this picture here because we are very close to Thanksgiving here in the US. And with the idea of project-based learning, the project has to be the unit of instruction. It cannot just be something that you do at the end of a unit. That is not project-based learning. However, I know that perhaps in Vietnam or in many other contexts, we are not what we have is not project-based learning in this kind of in this sense that it has to be the unit of instruction. So I just want to make this distinction, and which is okay. We are learning to implement some kind of projects in our courses, but perhaps what we have is not really project-based learning. So this is just another explanation or another picture for you to think about this. A dessert project is a short project after the teacher covers the content of a unit in the conventional way. And when I look at the textbooks in Vietnam, and that's what I see throughout the unit, you have a lot of activities, you have exercises, you have grammar, you have vocabulary, and at the end there is a project. So this is perhaps considered a dessert project, and which is okay. I think that we can, with any innovation, if we can start to introduce the innovation in a friendlier way like this is okay. Now, going back to the main course, the project is the unit of instruction. So it means that your course consists of a series of projects or a few big projects, and the projects drive the learning. So that is really the difference here. Okay, so Ms. Hồng Dinh is gonna show you a lot of projects that she has implemented in her courses. So I'm not explaining this project here, but if you're interested, you can click on this document and you will see an example of a project in the US. In the US, I think mostly project-based learning has been applied in a lot of different subjects like science, social studies, social science, medical science, mathematics. And usually English learners in the US study with the mainstream students. So the argument here is that project-based learning works for mainstream students. They should work for English language learners as well, and teachers can implement project-based learning with their English learners. Moving on, I would like to make another distinction here. There is another, if you're interested in more information about, I'm still sharing my screen, right? About project-based learning, this source actually gives you all that you need to know if you are interested in learning more. Now, you might have heard of this term as well, problem-based learning. So what is the difference between problem-based learning and project-based learning? Perhaps Ms. Hồng Dinh is going to talk more about that later as well, but I'm just curious if you can share in the chat whether you have noticed the differences between project-based learning and problem-based learning, or maybe there are not many differences here. I have this picture here about problem-based learning just because I think it has been applied a lot in medical training and business courses as well. And you can see the definition here. Problem-based learning is a pedagogical approach that enables students to learn about a subject by working in groups to solve a meaningful open-ended question. So the word that is used here is an open-ended problem. And another term that sometimes people use is an ill-defined problem or an ill-structured problem. So what it means is that, let's just say like a patient goes to the hospital, they have some symptoms. And now the physicians and the medical workers, they have to look at different data and information to try to identify the problem and diagnose the illness from the patient and then try to find a solution. So that's why problem-based learning has been used a lot in medical training and in that sense. Or for example, suddenly in your city, there has been rising cases of some kind of mysterious contagion. Then maybe perhaps you have to investigate and find different information and data in order to solve this problem. So that is problem-based learning, but sometimes it is consumed in project-based learning as well, because basically students also go through this process of inquiry in order to find a solution or to understand the problem and find solution to this problem. So I just want to mention this because there are a lot of terms out there, a lot about different methods of teaching here. But my take is that whenever you have the word based here, problem-based learning or project-based learning, it means that the learning is driven by projects or problems, right? You don't teach in the conventional way, but the units of instruction are problems or projects here. So this brings me to task-based language teaching, because this is something that I think has been applied in English language teaching more than, I would say, project-based or problem-based. And I'm taking you here because I think you can think of a project as a series of tasks or activities, right? A project is actually a series of activities that you plan and organize and arrange for the students, not for the students, but facilitate those activities with the students so that you can guide them through the process of the project. So I would like you to I would like to talk a little bit more about task-based language teaching, and then I will look at one of the projects in the textbook and see how we can develop different tasks for this project. Now, let me click on this, because I just hosted Rod Ellis in one of the webinars about task-based language teaching. And this is the definition that he used in the webinar, and I want to share it with you. So task-based teaching views learning as taking place holistically and incidentally as learners perform tasks that involve listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So you can see that different skills are integrated here. And teachers don't teach language, right? You don't teach grammar or vocabulary discretely, but you teach through tasks. Teachers do not teach language, rather they facilitate its development. So you can think of project-based learning is something similar as well, that you're not introducing grammatical rules or different functions of the language, but instead you present a project to the students, and through the process, they develop their language holistically and incidentally. Now, there is another definition of task-based language teaching here that I would like to show. The letters are a little bit small, but you have access to my Padlet. Task-based language teaching is an approach to language teaching that aims to develop learners' communicative competence by engaging them in meaning-focused communication through the performance of tasks. So again, tasks have to be the main units of instruction, right? That the whole course has to be based on a series of tasks. What is a task? And for me, I have been using these 4 criteria to develop tasks for my students. And perhaps you have already heard about this, but let me explain a little bit, and then we will look at a project from the textbook together. So there are 4 criteria here in order for an activity to be a task in language learning and teaching. Learners have to focus on meaning, primarily on meaning. So they need to understand ideas, they need to communicate ideas instead of just, let's just say, practicing language. In communication, there has to be a communicative gap. Maybe there is an information gap, an inference gap, an opinion gap, so that it gives them a reason to communicate. They need to use their own linguistic resources. Again, it is not something that they are rehearsing, but they use whatever they have, right, to achieve the communicative outcome here. And the communicative outcome of a task can be maybe if they have 2 pictures that they have to find the differences, they have to mark the differences. If they listen to someone giving an instruction, they may have to draw a route on the map. So that is a communicative outcome, or they need to make a decision. The reason why we have these criteria is for an activity to engage students meaningfully, right? So that the students focus more on meaning, so that the way that we teach is not reverting back to explaining grammar and vocabulary and doing a lot of teacher talk. So I would like to share this with you just to think about the technical sense of the word task. And when you develop a series of tasks for a project, these are the things that you may need to take into consideration. So by saying this, by taking you here from project-based learning to problem-based learning to task-based learning, I want to present this idea of how about structuring a project as a series of tasks. So when you give a project to students, I think it is not enough just to give a project and let them work on their own and let them figure things out. There's a lot of support and there's a lot of scaffolding that teachers need to do. But how about develop a series of tasks for students to be engaged in? And let's take a look at one of the projects that I found in an English textbook in Vietnam here. I think this is for grade 6. So I don't know if any teachers here have seen this project in their course or have conducted it with their students. I'm not seeing a lot of people, so I just I feel like I'm talking to myself. So I'm just wondering if you have given this project to your students in your class. So this is from one of the textbooks that have been shared by me. And let's take a look at this. In this project, students have to, this is the instruction. Imagine your dream school. What does it look like? What can you do there? And there are some questions here. And this is the task. I think work in groups, discuss your dream school, then write about it and illustrating your writing. So if we look at this framework, then what is the challenge or the problem here, right? So that's maybe the first question that we can ask when we plan this project for the students. And then what is the sustained inquiry here? So this is my suggestion actually, so I'm gonna move on here. When you think about this project and you think about how to implement it in your classroom, okay, so someone says that this is a design project. It's quite similar with living room a bit. I'm sorry. Okay, I have done these projects with primary students. Okay, yeah. So it's a design project. Yeah, that's interesting. I actually didn't think about it as a design project, but that may be an interesting dimension because you bring in a different discipline, right? Design or architecture here. So that's interesting. So here as a teacher, if you're looking at how you can implement this project with your students, then you need to think about your design and your plan, right? And you need to think about how to manage activities. Of course, it's important to define learning goals here and how to scaffold student learning, how to assess their learning and how to engage and coach them, engage with them and coach them. So this is just my suggestion without being in Vietnam and teaching the students. This is just my analytical thinking in terms of analyzing this project and breaking it down into different tasks and activities here. So to me, when I look at this, it seems like the learning goals involve students describing the school, right? In terms of the language function, perhaps they have to describe their dream school. They need to discuss with each other to make a decision on their dream school. They need to practice writing, right? They need to write about their dream school. So in those perhaps are the main learning goals from language teaching perspective. And what is the challenge and question here? Write about and illustrate your dream school. So to me, it seems like that's the challenge. That's the main challenge or the outcome that the students later on need to illustrate. Now the activities and the tasks, to me, if I have to break it down, I will see that students first have to discuss and decide on the characteristics of their dream school. They need to write about the dream school. They need to illustrate the writing and they need to present the product. So those perhaps are the main tasks in this project. I didn't think about the design element because when I look at this, I feel that maybe it's not not about designing, making a design, but perhaps you can go into that direction as well. Now, this is just me imagining and designing something. And I think that again, to me, when we implement a project, we need to do a lot of work in terms of supporting and planning the activities for the students. So this is something that I may do, right? The first step or task one here for me will be for the students to discuss and decide on the characteristics of their dream school. So to help them to do this, I can give them a handout like this to record the results, right? So I give the handout to each group and tell them that they need to complete it after the discussion. But to make the discussion more like a task, I may ask each student to write down 3 must-have facilities on their own. So here in their dream school, they have to decide 5 must-have facilities. So to make this into a task, I ask each student to come up with maybe 3 to 4 facilities on their own. And then when they get together in a group, maybe a group of 3 students or 4 students, they have to share their facilities, and then they have to discuss and agree on 5 facilities together. So you can see that this sounds more like a task, and they have to make a decision at the end. And actually in my dissertation, this is one of the tasks that I had in my experiment actually. So what you can see here, and I want to, this is actually a decision-making task. In task-based language teaching, this is a decision-making task. They have to discuss, they have to agree, they have to make a decision at the end, and they have to record their decision here. But it is free choice in the sense that you don't give them a list of facilities that they have to choose from, but they can come up with their own dream facilities from the school, and then they discuss and agree on. So my research actually has to do with choice and engagement. And what I have found is that giving students some structure and some choice promotes engagement and language use. So it can be one of the tasks that you ask students to do in this project. Now, this is the second task, and this was inspired by by a presentation that I did with my colleague, Dr. Hoa Nguyễn, who presented to VietTESOL teachers before. And we also like to use pictures in developing tasks. And this can be something that maybe another task that you can do with your students, that you give each student a picture and ask them to study it carefully. And I just found a few pictures on the internet here, but perhaps you can find better pictures that are more familiar to students in Vietnam. Ask students to take turns to describe the picture, right? Maybe students work in groups of 3 and each of them has 1 picture. So they have to describe their own picture without showing it to their group. And the group has to choose 1 picture as the cover based on the description only. I'm talking about the cover because I'm imagining that the student will put together a booklet or maybe a picture book or something to illustrate their dream school. So here they have to describe the 3 pictures, and then they have to choose 1 as the cover. And then students show their picture and the group decides again after they can see the pictures visually. If they are not happy with the picture, they can find another one as the cover, right? For their picture book that they are creating to showcase their dream school. So again, this is another task that maybe you can design for the students, and it provides them some kind of structure. It still provides them choice as well. And as you can see, this is this task has an information gap because each student has their own picture. They don't see each other's picture. There is also an opinion gap because they may think differently about each picture. So there is an opinion gap here. They also have to make a decision at the end as well, but the choice is constrained because you provide the pictures to the students instead of letting them choose in advance. I just want to share with you because usually when I design activities, I design the activities in terms of meeting the criteria of a task in task-based language teaching. Okay, and there may be other activities and tasks that you need to walk the students through in order for them to complete this project. So these are just examples, and I have two columns here. The first one is the task that students have to complete, and the second column here is the teacher's scaffolding and support. So the next task is for the students to write about their dream school, because that's what the project requires them to do. And as a teacher, maybe you can provide a model, right? As support, you can provide a model. You can help students to divide the work because they work in groups. Then maybe they need a little bit help with dividing the work, or you can help them to write collaboratively, maybe using Google Doc, for example. You may provide students with a structure or with a frame. If the students are weak or at a low level, perhaps you can provide some kind of a frame. And you can teach students how to give peer feedback as well, because they work together, then they need to also give each other feedback. The next activity that they need to do, or the task that they need to do, is to illustrate their writing, because again, this is what the project asks them to do. Then as teachers, you can provide scaffolding, and I don't think you have to do all of these, but just think about what kind of scaffolding you need to provide to students. You may need to, again, provide a model. I always find providing a good model useful because students have the input, and then it helps them to produce a better product as well. You may teach students how to use PowerPoint. If you ask them to illustrate their writing on PowerPoint, or maybe just use a Google Doc, a Word doc, or Canva. I love Canva to illustrate. To illustrate the writing as well. So in terms of using technology, again, you may even need to provide support with that. You may teach students how to find images, and maybe you can give them time to draw. Some students are talented, and perhaps they can also draw to illustrate their dream school. And as teachers, you can also give them feedback as they go through this process. So these are just these are my suggestions. In terms of the next one is for the students to present their final product. And so again, teachers can provide scaffolding and support. You may ask students to rehearse their presentation and at home, or maybe you give them time in class. You may arrange time for students to showcase their products, of course, maybe in the classroom or publicly. This is a really important element of project-based learning as well, that there needs to be some kind of a public presentation. And maybe you can find ways for students to publish their products, right, on the internet to share with other people. Finally, you may ask students to reflect and self-assess as well. And again, I don't think that students can do this on their own. And maybe you can create a form or a worksheet to help students to reflect or self-assess their projects. Finally, this is actually a difficult part of project-based learning, I think. In terms of assessment, how can you assess students during the project as well as the product of the project? So you may have formative assessment during the project. So whatever the task that you ask students to do, you may assess the task outcomes. And also you may have a rubric to assess the final product as well. I think that this is really general, but I just want to emphasize that teachers need to think of all these elements when they implement their projects. So my conclusion here for my part, and I will come back to the questions that you have, that projects are opportunities to engage learners in performing tasks that involve different language skills and move the focus away from teaching bits and pieces of the target language, commonly seen in traditional language teaching. Students actually do the talking, listening, reading, and writing. If you want to innovate, if you want to move away a little bit from the traditional way of teaching language with a lot of teacher talking time, with a lot of drills and mechanical exercises, then projects are a good way of doing this. Or if projects are too big, and I will come back to this, it takes too much time, then think about tasks, some of the tasks that I have just presented as well. So with that, I want to share some of my information here. I will put it in the chat, but I will come back to answer the questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you. I'm sorry for my voice. I don't know that I just had something that I didn't notice before.
Thank you, Dr. Linh Phùng. It was such a great presentation. It's okay, your voice sounds fine for me. Thank you, Dr. Linh Phùng, for the suggestions of how to apply projects successfully in a class in terms of the general guidelines. How about some successful lessons from a very well-known educator from the USA? Let me just move on to the next presentation from Ms. Hồng Đinh. She's a very famous educator with a fan page, Học kiểu Mỹ tại nhà. Ms. Hồng Đinh is an educator from Gwinnett County Public Schools in Georgia, USA. She's currently teaching 3rd grade. She's a grade level chair in ELA literacy teacher. Her certificates include elementary, K5, VietTESOL, STEM, and gifted. Ms. Hồng Đinh is also a book author and a founder of a fan page with more than 52,000 followers. Her books and fan page, Học kiểu Mỹ tại nhà, or Learning American Way at Home, are resources for Vietnamese educators, teachers, and parents worldwide. Now, please welcome Ms. Hồng Đinh.
Hello, everyone. I am super excited to be with all of you today in this webinar. And the topic and the audience is really like a very near and dear to my heart, because the first certification that I got after I got the K5 certification is VietTESOL, like English as second language certification. So the topics of VietTESOL and I saw a lot of like familiar faces here. So it's a great honor, and it's really cool to be with you guys today. So from Dr. Linh Phung's presentation, I saw a lot of the points that she mentioned. I will mention again, of course, in a very specific way, how I implemented it in my class. And I hope that after the presentation, you guys will have some ideas how to do it in your class with your own students. I think everyone can see my screen, right? Yes. Okay. So let's get started. So this is a very like just like a quick overview of what I have done like PBL in my class. Because if I want to spend like the whole maybe an hour or two just talk about every single component in here, it would be like so much longer. So just like very basic overview, and still I believe that after this presentation you will have a very clear picture and really understand the essence of project-based learning. So I graduated from Stockton University in New Jersey, and I got my master's in ESL in North Central University. So those are the places that I've been to. And currently I work in Gwinnett County Public School, and the school that I work at is Bethesda Elementary, and it is the oldest school in the district. And Gwinnett County is the biggest one in state of Georgia, and it's the one that most advanced technology. So I am super thankful and happy that I have the chance to work in WinNet. This is my 10th year of teaching and 5th year teaching 3rd grade. And you can see my team. I'm the team leader of 9 other 3rd grade teachers, and half of them are DLI teachers. That means in our school we have dual language immersion program. So half of the 3rd graders, they learn the content in Spanish as well. So just not in English, but they also get the content in Spanish, but they also, like all the tests are in English. And that's me holding my first book. I used to be a journalist. I am a book author and also an YouTuber. So all my students, when they know that I'm a YouTuber, they are super excited because a lot of the kids now, they want to be the YouTuber. So just like having a connection with like your students, they really love it. I am also a mom of a 10th grader. He's in high school right now. And I love traveling, I love reading, doing yoga. So any of you in here, I also love traveling, reading, and yoga. Just raise your hand. Oh, put it in chat. Awesome. Yeah, I saw a lot of hands up. So yeah, I love traveling, reading, and doing yoga. And my favorite food is pho, pizza and chicken wings. Actually, like anything that's chicken. So if you're also a fan of chicken, raise your hand. And my favorite color is green and orange. So I don't know if any of you like also green and orange. And this is my book, and the fan page. I'm pretty sure that a lot of you here may already read my books, I hope. So let's get started. So from this definition here, as you can read off the slide, it's a method, teaching method that engages students in learning important knowledge. And the key points that I want to say here, it's extended student influence inquiry process. And it has to be around complex, authentic question. And it has to be carefully designed, like both in terms of learning task and the final product. So it's just not like, just like Dr. Ling Feng said earlier about it's not the sign or the dessert, it has to be the main course. So that's the very important point in this definition. So let's talk about the 21st century skills. I know that in Vietnam, we have mentioned a lot about the 4C, critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. But actually, the 21st century skill is just not the 4C. It's more than that. It's because the 4C is just learning skill. We also need literacy skill and life skill as well. So a lot of the things that our district doing right now, it's SEL, social emotional learning. So it focuses more on the life skill to balance with all the other skills that we focus a lot more than maybe like more than we wanted to. So these are the 21st century skills that it's like the base or the foundations for all the PBL components that I will mention later on. So again, the most popular one is the 4C, critical thinking, creativity, cooperation, collaboration, and communication. And why I mentioned this, because when you're doing PBL, when you do project-based learning, it addresses all those 4C. So it's very important that whenever you think of a project, think about the 4C. Does it have critical thinking in there? Does it develop or boost creativity? Does it have cooperation or collaboration in your project? Does it have a communication piece in it? So that's why like I want to talk about this first, because wherever you try to do a project, think about those skills, the 4C. And I do have like a very detailed explanation and post in the content about each of these components. You can scan the QR code and read more later on. So when you talk about critical thinking, we talk about how we teach the students to find solutions to the problems. Of course, we teach them strategies to figure out things. We do not tell them the solution right away. You just teach them how to find solutions to the problems. And then the second component is creativity, thinking outside the box. So in your project, do you have any component that can boost the creativity of the student? So for example, right now in our class, we have thinking lessons. They must not do like math and study English or science and social study with worksheets or from textbook. We have a lot of things like puzzle games, math games, and like a lot of different games that they can play just to boost their thinking skills. And then this is the post that I wrote about collaboration. That means like the ability to work with others. So do they have the chance to work with each other during the project? And the last piece is, and I know this is very important because it's communication, especially for ESOL students. They do need the chance to talk to each other, to communicate their ideas and thoughts towards the final products. And of course, practice all the other language skills that they learn throughout the process or throughout the project. And the PBL, the term PBL, a lot of the time, they will refer like interchangeably between project-based learning and problem-based learning. But I do want to point out the differences. So for the problem-based learning, it's very close to inquiry-based learning. So if you want to know more about inquiry-based learning, you can go to my YouTube channel, Hong Ding. And you can watch a very, very detailed video about what exactly is inquiry-based learning. Basically, in there, the teacher will assume that students learn best if they are given the chance to create meaning, given certain broad ideas, goals, or objectives that span content area. So it's just not one idea or just not one goals. It has to like spread like several goals or objectives, and it connects several content areas. So it's just not like science or social study. It may it may be the combination of like the English language and math, or like science and math. And then it will ask the student to solve real-world problems, which are often fuzzy as compared to typical academic problems. So for example, instead of give them a math question or a math word problems, they will pose like a problem in real life. For example, this building, they have like very small area, but they need like this certain kind of machine to put in there. Like, how do you solve that problem? So that is the understanding the concept of inquiry-based learning. So the student would be exposed to a question or a real-world problem, and they try to solve it by doing all the gathering information, researching, studying, coming up with their ideas or design. And then during the process, they have to determine the roles, the situation, and the description of the problem for the student. So I just want to mention about like the difference between problem-based learning as part of project-based learning, because not all of the project-based learning is problem-based learning, but problem-based learning, it is part of project-based learning. So if you think of like PBL is like the big umbrella, then the problem-based learning is for something like fall underneath, and it's much smaller scale, but it has to be like have like real world problems. And next thing, oops, sorry, here. So let's talk about PBL in STEM first, because this is the what project-based learning take places most of the time and most effectively. So when we do the PBL in STEM, we always use 5E. Many of you may already know about the 5Es. The first one is engage, how you engage the student to the topic and to the project. And then explore, that's when you let the student do the project, like the experience, different experience, data collecting, observing, group work. And then after that, explain. The third E is explained. I mean, like when the teacher will explain the concept, give them the vocabulary words needed. So for example, if you do like a project about heat, or the heat transfer and the effect on things, then you will give all the vocabulary words for heat or heat transfer, like insulator, conductor, thermometer, things like that during the explain step. And then the next stage is elaborate. Elaborate is like when you want to combine more subjects into your project. For example, if you want to do math with it, or if you want to have them to write an essay or write sentences, it depends on the grade level that you teach. So elaborate is just like the student will have the chance to expand the concept and their learning through the different content areas. And the evaluate is in the middle, because it's not just the end. You do not just evaluate the end, like when they finish the product. The evaluation will like take place like throughout the whole process, even when you see them like do their explore stage, when they do the group project, group data collections, or like when they talk about their data to each other. You can do the evaluation right then and then. You do not wait until the end to do the evaluation. So when you do, whenever we do like STEM project or any PBL project, we always look at like the curriculum, look at the whole unit, look at the whole, or maybe like the whole concept that you want to teach the student. So I think Dr. Linh Phương did mention earlier about like how when you plan for it, it has to be like the whole several lessons. It's just not like the last lesson that you like kind of sum it up. No, it has to be from the beginning. So we kind of use like backward design to do any project that you want to do. So you need to know, okay, so this unit is about, I don't know, like maybe revolutions, or it's about like different weather patterns, or it can be about anything, but it has to be like several lessons connected to each other about one topic. So the 5 key elements in a STEM project is a driving question. They have to have a driving question that is kind of like an anchor to drive the whole project and the whole process. And every day, every week, we will revisit the question and see how far we are with the process of try to answer that question. And then the second component is real world context or scenario. So does this project really like address problem in real life? And then later on, I will like give you an example of our STEM project that I did with my 3rd graders. And then what is the science concept behind it? Because every STEM project, it has to have like a science concept. Even like if it's like Mid-Autumn Festival and you say that, oh, I want to do like a lantern project with my student. So what is the science behind it? Is it about light? Is it about saving energy? Like it has to have a science concept. Or is it about recycle? So it has to have a science concept behind any STEM project. And then the next key element is teamwork. The students have to have the chance to work in team, like break out in team. It doesn't matter how small or how big the team is, but they have to have some kind of like collaboration. And I will talk about like the collaboration tools later in this presentation. And then last but not least is the communication piece. Like they have to have the chance to communicate with each other and exchange the idea, and then exchange the like feedback, critique. So this is an example of the STEM project that I did with my third grader. It's the scenario of real-world context is like as a charter school, our school has more car riders than bus riders. So during carpool dismissal time, there's a serious air pollution. So it has to come from like something that your school or your class or your community have, like any kind of the problem, no matter how big or small. So I, from my observation, a lot of the time, schools in Vietnam or communities in Vietnam, they seems to focus on really like huge problems, like sometimes like out of the scope and sequence of what they have learned. So actually problems in any project, or especially in STEM project, doesn't have to be that big. It doesn't have to be always big like that. Sometimes it's like very, very small. For example, like if our school during lunchtime, a lot of food is wasted, like a lot of people threw away their food without like finishing it. How do we solve that problem? That can be a STEM project question, driving question. So it doesn't have to be like huge problem at all. Sometimes like super tiny problem, as long as it's like very relevant to the students and very relevant to that community. Or like in this neighborhood, there's not a lot of like traffic light and the traffic is really bad. So it really depends on where you live, what the community is like, and then you come up with the problem and you come up with question. So as you can see in here, our question, the driving question is like, how could you as pollution expert design a green space or garden to reduce pollution during carpool in our school? So if I have to talk about like driving question, what type of driving question and like how you can come up with a good driving question, it takes like another hour. So just like very brief introduction. So the next question is like project-based learning, is it just in STEM? Or how can you do it in other subjects as well? Because as you know that I teach third grade, so I do projects in other subjects, just not STEM. So for example, this is the latest project that I did with my kids. It's in English language arts. So in Vietnamese, is it like Mun Văn, right? So in ELA, you can do a group project with them. And this project is about how, because they have learned about like different ways that people around the world have access to books. So I have broken them, and I used jigsaw puzzle strategies. So if you have learned about jigsaw puzzle, it's like they have experts group, and then they come back to their original group to share their expertise. So each group, they will like research different countries like Canada, Zimbabwe, Finland, and Thailand. And then they will read, so everyone has the same book, and then they read, of course, the Canadian students, they will read their page about Canada, how people in Canada deliver books to kids. And the people that have assigned to Finland page, they will read just that page. And then the group come up with the slides presentation, and they will do it in Google Slides. So you can do it completely online, or you can do it online and offline or hybrid learning. So for this project, we did it on Google Slides, and then each of them in charge of one country on one slide. And then they come up together after their expert group, they come up to the original group, which is like group 3 in the example, and then they share out their presentation. So another subject that I do a lot of projects in is social studies. So in social study, of course, and I do have a lot of ESOL students in my class. A lot of my students are not native speakers. They are immigrant students from a lot of different countries around the world. So I do have a lot of ESOL students in my class, and how I help them, I use graphic organizers a lot of, because you know that how like students, when they gather facts and data, they need to have some kind of place to put the information in throughout the project. They do not just like have all the information ready already in day 1 or day 2 or day 3. They do need some space so they can gather facts and data. So I use a lot of different graphic organizer. As you can see, this one is about Native American Indians. Each of the group will in charge of one Native American Indian, like Arctic or the plains or the Southwest or the Southeast. And then the information is broken into like food, clothing, shelter, and other facts. So I don't know, like you guys have like talk about in one of those webinars about like how you can chunk the information for ESOL students. So same thing, like with the graphic organizers, you can chunk the students, break it apart. So just like easier for them to deal with. And this is the project time. They work together, they communicate, they will assign the roles, who will be gathering facts, who will be do the drawings, who will do the writing. So there's some other examples. Social studies in social study. So the products, it's the finest product. It can be poster type, brochure, flyers, a movie. So it comes in many different forms. It's just not like presentation or poster all the time. It can be a book or an audio book. So the other projects that I did in reading, in the subject reading, they record an audio book. So you can do that with your students as well. Like just be creative with like the final product, what they can create. And this is a math project. You also can do PBL in science and math. I think that the picture is kind of small, but I can talk about that. It's like during the holiday seasons, when you have wrapping paper, they had to measure like how, because we're learning about perimeter and area, you can teach them the concept of area and perimeter by doing this project with them. Of course, again, you need to have some kind of like a data chart, data table, graphic organizer, note catcher, whatever you call it, but they have to have some space or somewhere they put the information in and show their work. Later on, I would talk more about like how you will make these more student-friendly format, like handouts, and it has to be like purposeful. You do not just like create something just like randomly and doesn't like really collect the information that you need for the project. Before I talk about the how, like how you do PBL in your class, I would talk about the why. I think Dr. Lincoln did mention a little bit about it in the beginning of her presentation. Of course, it will boost teamwork, but also other skills as well. As you can see in here, it's a typical example of cooperative learning. And that's the chance for you to have heterogeneous grouping with like learners with various learning experiences. So the low reader can work with higher readers. And like someone is not at oral verbal skill can practice their verbal skill with other friends that very fluent and very vocal, very fluent in their speaking skill. So it's just like very, very different learning experience, different skills grouped together. High order thinking skill, it gives them the chance to interact, to like foster the relationship between students and student teacher. Self-esteem, because when they finish or achieve or complete the project, they feel great. So that's a great self-esteem, engagement, presentation and communication skill, of course, because when they present their products, they have to use that skills. Problem solving, because a lot of the time when they doing the project, there's a lot of problem coming up. How you gonna teach them solve the problem? And then, as I said earlier, critical thinking, creativity, responsibility, and self-management, because there's deadline that you give them. So of course they have to manage how to complete the task at different timeline. Now, this is the part that I think is very beneficial to all of you, like the how you're gonna do it. Because I saw a question earlier about like someone asked, like, if I do not have enough time, how I'm gonna do it. So as a teacher, you are just the facilitator. You're not the one that doing all of that. You just like facilitate all of the steps, and then the actual doer are the students. So basically there are 4 steps: assign the groups, then direction and preparation, and then step 3 is implementation, and step 4 is sharing final products or showcase. And I will explain every single step in detail. There are 3 ways to form a group. You can either count off, or do fishbowl, or assign. So count off is like when you have your students, and then you will have them like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever, how many groups that you want to have, like 5 or 6, you have them count up from 1 to 6. If you want to have 3 groups, then you just have them count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then all the 1s together, all the 2s together, and all the 3s together. So I find this like really easy to do, especially like, for example, if you have to have a group project about different parts of Vietnam, for example, then you will have them count like 1, 2, 3, because there will be central, north, and south. That's the first way to form a group. And the second one is fishbowl. Fishbowl is like I write the name of each of the group on a piece of paper, and then I put it like in a container or box, and they just like lucky draw. They just like pick up the piece, and then whatever group that they have, like I will write on the poster on anchor chart, and then they know who they're working with. And with these strategies, like the cow off and the fish bowl, it's like just really easy, like to avoid things that, oh, I want to work with this friend, but I don't want to work with this friend. So that is like very, very objective. So like whatever they got, it's like what they got, and they just have to stick with that group. And then the third way is assign. Like if you decide to just like assign, okay, the first table, whoever sit in the first table is a group 1, whoever sit in the second table is group 2. So you can do that as well. Like you just assign them. And the second step is giving direction and preparation. It has to be very, very clear. I cannot like emphasize enough of that, because the clearer that your direction, the better the product, and the less work that you have to do later on. So it has to be super, super specific. Oh, I can't see the mouse. Oh, here. So like where you want them to go, which website, what are the keywords when they search for the information, how to paraphrase, how to give quotes, etc. Like everything that content related for that project is to be super specific. Format, like how do you want it looks like? Is it digital format? Which platform you want them to do? Is it Nearpod or Canva or whatever, like the Google Jamboard, whatever like tools that you use, like just give them, explain it to them, teach them. Is it brochure or song or play? And then the delivery presentation part, do you need background music? Do you use cue cards? Do you rehearse? How many days before? So just give them the direction. So that's why I say, like, when you plan a project, it has to be backward design. That means you have to kind of like have the clear vision of what the final product is like before you start all these steps. It has to be very, very purposeful and specific. And then the routine, the procedures, how to resolve conflict, how just like who to report to if a member like doesn't do his or her work. How do you gonna solve that? Do you just like let them resolve the conflicts by themselves, or like report to you? Like it depends, I guess it depends on like what grade level that you teach. Then you just teach those procedures, like mention those routines very specifically. Like for me, for example, I will always like have a group leader, a team leader, and then they will have to be in charge resolving the conflict in their group first before they come to me and ask my help. And then about the deadline, what is the deadline for each part? What's the final deadline? Usually a project we do is like 2 or 3 weeks. And then what's the expectation rubric checklist? And then the third phase is implementation. Again, the teacher is as the facilitator, just the supervisor. You will provide feedback, giving them comments, encouragement. And of course, the feedback and comment has to be specific. It cannot just like general, like, oh, you did a good job. It has to be specific, like, oh, I like how you color this. I like how you combine the facts from this textbook with the information from this website. So it has to be very specific. And when you see the work that they're doing, like you see the progression, it's kind of inform your instruction, like, and you revise if it's needed. So the next time you do that same project again, you may say, oh, I want to change that part. Oh, I think that it is too long or too short for them. It's too easy, too difficult for them. So it's like inform instruction in that way. And of course, the last step is sharing a final product or showcase, publishing. So how to present, take turns or not, how to interact with the audience. Like you, even like for young kids, you have to teach them like how you stand, like not blocking the screen, and then at the same time, do not turn your back to the audience. So it has to be really specific. Arrange time for rehearse. The seat arrangement, do you want to have the same setup of your classroom, how it looks like, or you want to do that U shape, turn the table around, make a theater style or in circle? So what do you want to have for the seat arrangement on the day that they publish the product? Technical support, do they need background music, projector, share file? How they gonna share that, etc. And then of course at the end of the sharing of each team, there'll be Q&A, and that is requirement from me when they present. Like every single member, they have to have Q&A because that is when the review time, and they have the test after the project presentation. So because the project is the summary of their learning, is like chapter review or test right after. So they need to know what they're doing, and they need to know what their friends doing. So I always have some kind of like the review summary format, so they can just follow along, and they look at the friend's presentation, and they write down facts or have question and comments and feedback. And this is a very crucial part as well. It's every single project that I do, I will have group contract. So if you want, you can scan the QR code or follow the link to read more about it. So basically, a group contract is to hold everyone's accountable. It has start and end date. It has team members' name and roles, and it has a lot of agreements listed. And of course, there's one blank one because they can come up with their own rules for their team. And it has the group signatures. So as you can see here, this is the format that I did with my class, and it works wonderful every single time. And I have shared these with my colleagues at my school, and they really love it, because you can see it's like everything is listed there. Every single student will have their own role and specific. It holds everyone accountable, and the agreement is like very, very clear, so everyone can follow. And I even mentioned here, like if someone in our team breaks one of the mob agreement, the team may have a meeting. And yeah, so like every single thing that to avoid all the problems, or to avoid any delay, any troubles, you can just list it in the group contract. And I did share these on my fan page with my STEM classes, and a lot of the teachers in Vietnam, they actually have implemented this, and it has been wonderful. So I just want to share with you some of the sample here. So there is a teacher in, I think she used to teach like first grade. So the group contract, it can be in many different formats. It doesn't have to be in text. It can be using both text and pictures. So cute, right? And with like younger learners, like kindergarteners, you can just use pictures instead of text if they cannot read yet. So it has to be student appropriate level. And another one, that is the group contract for high schoolers. So of course you can add some more the complicated rules or agreements, and then more serious agreement if they or more consequences if they cannot follow the rules. So it depends on each grade level. You can modify this group contract. And I do have that link to the group contract. Of course, you can read it from the post as well, but if you want to see more of those, you can go visit my fan page, and then you will see it there. And again, for communication and collaboration, that's very important component in any PBL. There is just some examples of the collaboration piece in STEM project. They can ask questions, they can, like when they develop and using the models, they can communicate as well. When they're planning and carrying out investigations, like when they do the experiment, and when they're analyzing, interpreting data, that is part of communication. Or when they use computational thinking, constructing explanation, engaging in argument from evidence. So all those skills are so important in a STEM PBL and in any PBL. And when you do the project with them, make sure that you teach them about body language, the expectation, what you learn, and summarize and categorize. I think I did mention about it when on the presentation day already. And then this is about the collaboration tools. I will talk about both offline and online, some of the choices that you can have when you want them to work together during the project. So for the online one, you can use like Google Classroom. I use that a lot, like every single day. Google Jamboard. That was really, really cool as well when you do small group. Nearpod, Google Slides, Trello. So for like maybe high schoolers and college students, you can use Trello and some other tools as well. And of course, with the presentation and graphic tools, you can use Canva. We talked about Canva earlier. And PictoChart, ThinkLink, Google Slides, Blogsters. So this is just like some very popular one that we use in our project. We're gonna do a really cool short quiz about PBL. What I have talked about in this presentation. But real quick before we do these Bookit, I don't know if any of you have like Bookit before, but it's really, really, really engaging. So before we do that, let's have a quick look of I do have a STEM class, and every single lesson, like I would talk a lot about what we have been talking about in like PBL in STEM. So if you're interested, you can either visit my fan page, scan the QR code here about the class. And the course on Kina is mostly about the first book, Học Kiểu Mỹ tại Nhà. And if you have any questions, feel free to visit my fan page. And I will see you more again during Q&A session later on. But let's do the Bookit real quick, because it's really fun. And let me stop sharing for a second. And I will give you the Bookit code. So let's go to, it'll be just 10 questions. And okay, so it's the almost Halloween. So I don't know. Have you ever played Bookit? Has anyone played Bookit before? So let's do, usually like my kids would be like so crazy about like, which game are we gonna play? I guess let's do crypto hype because let's do deceptive dinos. So let's so you can go to, let me turn off the sound. Go to play.bookit.com and enter this game ID 1468584. And then I wait until most of everyone in, and then I start the game. Okay, I saw Thùy Nguyen already in here. Let's go. It's gonna be really, really fun. You're gonna love it. So just go to playbookit.com and then the game code is 1468584. So those who have played Bookit before, I don't know if you have, but it's so engaging. I did make a video about Bookit platform on my YouTube channel, Holding. So if you want to check it out. Okay, I have several. Just wait for a few more friends to join. Awesome. And my kids, they love like when they can change the font of their name. So there's a website. I have to find that website again, but like you can change the font. Some of them do like cursive, some of them do like bold print. It's just like all different ways that they can do with their name. Cool. One more minute for those to want to join, and then I will start the game. So just like basic question of what I have been presenting. Let's see. Yeah, I know. So, oh, I already saw some great question earlier about PBL, and I'm more than happy to answer all those questions later on. But let's play the game first. Oh, I saw Peng Li and of course the fellow speaker like Dr. Ling Feng and Miss Wan Pham, if you want to join. It's gonna be really fun. You can play with I think with your phone too, using your phone. 36. Okay, I guess I wait until okay, it's 11:30. Oh, people are still joining. 37. Okay. Kim Kung, a lot of familiar names. Awesome. All right, wait until it's 40 and then I'll start the game. Because we still have other presenter. Okay, so let's get started. Cool. So for those who did not know about Bookit or have not played Bookit, that is the instructions. You just answer the question and then you will. You also can steal from other treasures, and you can catch the cheater. You take some of the fossils, so it's like fighting the fossils. So we have 7 minutes. Good luck. Let's get started. See who is the winner. So I'm gonna see who is what is the question, but you can see it if you play, and then I only can see the top leaderboard here, and I will see the score after the 7 minutes. The question is, I think, is very basic. It's very simple about what I've presented. So in my classroom, if we playing Bookit, they would be like all of the thrilling sound and yelling and shouting excitement. So it's really, really fun. I wish that we all in the same room so we can hear the excitement. Okay. So yeah, every Bookit game just 7 minutes, and then after the 7 minutes, we will see the top 3. We'll see the podium, the top 3. In Trần and Lee and Ngoan Phạm, have you played Bookit before? Kangley just got good cheating. Kangley just got one cheating. Cool. So I mean 5 more minutes. And I can actually show the question for those who are not playing. Let me stop sharing for a minute and then I show you the question because we still have 4 minutes. So it's just like very basic question. And let's look at this question. Let me share the screen. I guess like when you go to discover on Bookit, you can type this one, PBL short quiz, and I will, like in my presentation, there's a link for it and you can see the question there. I think you cannot see the question when you're playing. So I think 3 more minutes. Yeah, 3 more minutes. Let's go back here. So Lani, it's in the lead, and then Miss Lay, and then Nina. Let's see if it's changed. Rose is in the lead. And during the game, if you want to pause or stop, you can always like end now, like with this button right here. So it's kind of familiar with Kahoot and Quizlet, but our district, we cannot play Kahoot anymore because something wrong with like they try to bleach the information. It's like leaking like the data. So Kahoot is not approved to play in our district. So we only play mostly Blockade and then quiz it, not Kahoot anymore. No more Kahoot. So I don't know how is it in Vietnam. Do you still use Kahoot? But Kahoot is not approved in here. So it has something to do with like the information leaking or something, like collecting data. 2 more minutes. And then later on, when like the Q&A, I really want to hear some of you share the experience. If you are the first time player with Blockade. Less than 2 minutes. So the leaderboard has changed. Now with Anh is in 3rd place, Nia is 2nd place, and then Theo is in 1st place. This one. We are invested. And then we have 1 more minute. $40 seconds. Yeah, some of the teachers here share that the students like crazy about Blockade. Yeah, it's so addicting. 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Great. So this is our final standings. Congratulations to Lani, Nina, and Thương Thảo. Great job. Okay, so I hope that you had fun with the PPL short quiz and you do find some great or useful information, and I will see you again during Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hồng Đình, for a very interesting presentation. I'm sure that after her presentation, the teachers will have more take-backs for their classroom, and see you in the Q&A session. So we have just listened to a very useful presentation from Ms. Hồng Đình about the application of projects in the USA. How about the experiences in the context of a Vietnamese in a Vietnamese school? Let me just introduce you to the next presentation from Ms. Ngoan Phạm. Ms. Ngoan Phạm is currently an English lecturer at VietTESOL University. She completed postgraduate course and obtained MA degree in TESOL for professional development last year. Besides, she has had 5-year experience in teaching English at various institutions. Her research interests include teaching methodology, language skills, computer-assisted language learning, and testing and assessment. Ms. Ngoan Phạm, are you here? Oh, okay, okay. I will leave the stage for Ms. Ngoan Phạm. Ms. Ngoan Phạm, I cannot hear you. Is your microphone on?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for spending time with us today. My name is Wen. You just listened to the valuable sharing from two great speakers. Right? So now let's move on to the application of project-based learning at Nguyễn University in Ho Chi Minh City, where I'm teaching. I will divide into the speech into 5 parts. I will introduce myself a little bit, and then I will talk about some projects I have implemented, and some opportunities and challenges. And I will give some tests to implement the projects and some notes. To begin with, I have been teaching English major students for 5 years from the Faculty of Foreign Languages, and I'm assigned in the Department of Translation and Interpretation. Yeah, and during the teaching period, I have been in charge of both English skills like listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and some special like courses related to translation as well. So that the projects I implemented related to both segments. First, I would like to talk about the steps to conduct the projects. I adapt from the Stoller in 1997. There's 10 steps. And then I briefed it into 4 stages. The first one, I think Miss Ling has really clear instruction, clear speech word. Now I just mention again. The first step is you will assign group and let them choose the topic and give some them guidelines related to the language or related to the fact yes, the assessments as well. And then the students are required to send the draft or the script or the outline. It depends on the each course. They will after that they will submit their product and teachers will give assessment. I have implemented several projects related to speaking, reading, listening, and translation. And because the time strain, so I just mentioned 3 of them. The reason I came up with the project-based learning is that when I saw the course book, the task is not really practical, and I think that the student exposure to authentic context is limited, and they didn't have chance to talk, to use English in real world. That is why I use project-based learning. And the first project is I let them create postcards. They are freshmen. This project is aimed to improve writing, drawing, critical thinking, and teamwork skills. And it is kind of formative assessment. So you can see the task. They will work in group of 5 and create a postcard. Introduce one of the tourist attractions in Vietnam to their foreign friend. They could draw the picture of this place and write a short letter to describe it. And you have 2 weeks to complete this project. And you see, there's some my students' product. It is the picture of Saigon. This is a postcard of Saigon. They introduce Saigon to their friend. Yeah, this is the letter. Is the introduce Nha Trang and Dalat. So after I received the products, I was really amazed and surprised at their creativity. some of them, they are very good at drawing. So I think that is a project-based learning is a good method to recognize some talents. Yeah, right. So they should not just improve linguistic skills, but linguistic skills as well, like policies Miss Hồng Ding just mentioned. Yeah. And when we adopt this project-based learning, the teachers' role is really important. First, they have to give clear instruction, and they have to support the students, for them really careful, and motivate them when they are downward or they have some problems. And when they give us the draft or the questions, do you have the comments or the feedback, and finally you will give marks. For the postcards assessment, I use some criteria: the vocabulary, grammar, the visual, the drawing, and organization is the format, the structure of the postcard, and the layout. Actually, at the time, I didn't use any rubric. Just come up with this criteria and mark them. So this rubric I just found out from the internet, and I think it's up to you. So you can refer it later because the time limited. Right. Thank you. And the second project is the make a video clip, and it is used to speaking class, and they are freshmen as well. It's aimed to improve speaking, video recording, critical thinking, and teamwork skill. And it's the same assessment, kind of assessment is formative. It is a task. Students will work in group of 5 and make a video clip about shopping situation. And the bottom line is students will play roles as the seller customers, but in the different setting. They have to make up the setting, maybe in the dictionary or the library, the bookstore, at the street, or in the store. Yeah. They will write the script and they record the video. The length of video is 3 to 5 minutes, and they have 2 minutes, 2 weeks for submission. So the teacher's role is the same as in the postcard, and you can see this is my students' video. I think because time is not allowed, so I will play for 1 minute, I think so.
One, can you share the sound? We cannot hear the sound of the students.
Really? Can you hear now? Yes or no? Can you hear now?
No, we cannot hear.
Because I. Oh.
Let's see.
Okay, so I could drop the link. All right, I could drop the link for you. Just a minute. Yeah. Can you, Miss In or Miss Lily, can you it because when I share on the PowerPoint slide, there is no sound.
Okay, just give me a minute.
All right.
Okay, so normally there should be an option of sharing sound, but I don't know why I cannot find it here.
Oh, okay. So I think we can skip it.
Sorry about this.
This is that I will show my students product. So if you want to refer to my video of my students' videos, I will share to later. Yeah. So I thought that they are freshmen and I'm really surprised at their speaking skills, and they're some that use the technology like make a video. So this is the video clip assessment. You can click on this one. Can you see it? Please, can you see it? Hello? Can you see the video project rubric?
We
No.
only see the link.
Yeah,
not the document itself.
Yeah, we see the PowerPoint.
Not yet. I can see the videos with the sound.
Okay. Okay, right. Thank you. So now I will share the tab, the link. I will. Now I will open it and share it again. Sorry.
So probably for the video we can because Miss One already sent the link in the chat box, so everyone can see the video later. And Miss One. Oh, okay. Yeah, Miss One, we can see your video project rubric now. Miss One, can you turn on your mic, please?
Yes. Okay. Can you see? Can you see the rubric now? Yes or no?
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Right. Okay. Also, I will talk again about the criteria is the performance, like this speaking performance. You could test the vocabulary, grammar, speaker, pronunciation. So you can see if they're excellent, they perform perfectly with few grammatical mistakes or vocabulary. And for the poor students, they perform a little well with many grammatical mistakes. So it's really, really detailed. The second criteria is the conversation. It's like the content of the script. I mean the script. Is interesting or not, or is related to the topic or not? Yeah. And the quality of the video. Is the picture, the sound is good or not? Yeah, to this. the teamwork skill and the timeline. Actually, when you adapt is the weight of the weight of the points, like you can change, you can adapt it. Okay, I think you can use it in your class. Thank you. Yeah, we continue with the presentation. Slide show. Yeah, sorry. My mouse problem. Yeah, wait. Okay. The last project is literary books translation. I applied for the senior students, and its objective is to improve translation, critical thinking, and teamwork skills. And this is the final project. They will work in group of 4 and translate a book about tourism, the cuisine, history, and literature, what they have to learn during the course into English and Vietnamese. Each member is required to translate 10 English and 10 Vietnamese pages, and the duration is 1 to 2 months. So now after I implemented the projects, I found that some opportunity and challenges. And in terms of the good things, I see that the projects are quite easy to conduct. Uh, I think these teachers could do it. And the second good thing, students, most of them are willing to carry out projects as long as teachers have clear goals and yes, a clear instruction. The third one, teachers can take the content from the course book. This is the advantage. However, there are some problems from the teachers call they, because in the university in Vietnam, this class is clearly has a lot of students from 50 to 70 students, and one teachers are in charge of a few classes. So when they have to carry out the projects, then they have to assess a lot of group works. They feel tired and really, so exhausted, and the workload is really heavy. And from the students, they said that the time is not enough, and because they have to deal with so many projects from different courses, and in the work in the group there is not equal contribution. Some work very hard, and some maybe one student didn't contribute a lot. Yeah, and they have a conflict. Sometimes they talk to me that, oh, teachers, these students didn't spend time with us, so it is really troublesome. And finally, and this is some notes for you. To have successful projects, I think teachers first should have clear goals to announce to students that what kind of knowledge and what kind of skills they will be improved after the project, so they will have motivation. Secondly, teachers should have specific instruction, like Miss Home told us, in terms of the content, the format, the timing, delivery, and I add one more very important, especially for higher school and university students, is the assessment. Yeah, you have to give them the rubric for assessment. And last, no, the third one, I think these projects will be not successful without teachers' sufficient support. not just the linguistic aspects like vocabulary, grammar, or something that or some kind of related to content. However, non-linguistic like technical issue or some kind of trouble or some kind of trouble maybe arise. And finally, teachers should be enthusiastic, should be passionate, and spend time and effort in helping students in completing the projects. And thanks for listening to this end of my presentation. I hope that it will be useful to you.
Thank you, Miss
Miss Ian. Yes.
So, would you like to continue with your video, because I think Miss Kangli can help you with this.
Okay. Yes. So if you, I can share it. Okay.
Okay.
So Miss Lee, can you share the video for me? Thank you.
Okay, I will share the video. Yes. Can you hear the sound, everyone? Again.
No.
I cannot hear the sound.
Yes. Here. You have to click instead sound on the setting here over there.
Hi everyone, my name is Thắng.
Okay.
I'm leader of group 4. Today I will roll a sailor. He's my member.
Hi, my name's tiếng. I'm his assistant.
Hello, my name is Yi. I will roast a male customer.
Hi, my name is Linh. I will draw a female customer.
And our director is Fu. In the bustling afternoon, there's an active seller in a shop which is called Giúp. Fortunately, he has his assistant help him with his work. Oh, a customer is going to the Giúp. So here we go. Now more. Oh, how can I help you with?
I'm looking for a t-shirt.
Okay.
Here you are.
We have two card color for it, the blue one and the green one. Which one would you like? This one or this one? While the man is selecting his clothes, the seller approached the woman who is very pleased with the zip shoe. Would you like to show you?
Yes, how much are they?
It's $10. Thank you. See you again. Return to the man, or there's a helpful assistant trying to convince the man to buy a shirt. Oh, did you have your choice?
I like the blue one.
Would you like to try it on?
It's okay. It looks fit to me. How much is it?
$5 for it. Thank you. See you again.
Goodbye.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. We have gone 3 presentations from Dr. Linh Phung, Ms. Hồng Dinh, and Ms. Nguyen, and all the speakers gave us valuable insights to the project-based learning in English language learning. During our session, we have received some questions of from the teachers in the chat box, and let me just move to the Q&A session now. And before we move to the Q&A session, I will just want to remind you that we will have a survey by the end of the Q&A session. So please stay tuned till the end to get your certificate. All right. So the first question is for Dr. Linh Phung. This is from Ms. Phan Yin, and her question is, I am wondering how teachers link the first task and the second task.
Yeah, okay. I think I saw that question as well, and I think the teacher here asked me about task 1 and task 2 that I shared. Let me just share the screen very quickly again. So I just imagine that the main goals of these project is for the students to describe their dream school, right? And also for them to discuss ideas and also to complete a writing. That's why in the first task here, I suggest that they can discuss and decide on the characteristics of their dream school. And then in the second task here, basically I want to help them to learn how to describe pictures and how to describe the different features of the schools here and to make the decisions as well. And the outcome here is for them to choose the cover. Maybe I didn't explain, I imagine that they would create a picture book to describe their dream school. And in the picture book, there's text and there's illustrations. And the outcome of this task is for them to choose the cover of that picture book. So the linguistic goal is for them to describe pictures, right? And to talk about their dream school, but the non-linguistic outcome is the decision to choose the cover for the project. So I hope that is clear.
So I can add to that. You can turn that into STEM project by thinking about the school that the children's living in. So for example, do they have a garden? Do you want to design a garden in their school? Their school roads, the roads around the school, is it like accessible and safe? So like anything related to their space inside and outside the school. And it has any problems, you can turn into like an inquiry-based research project or a STEM lesson, like based on the problems that specific to that location or to that building.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, and I think the direction that the direction of the project depends on how the teacher frames it and the context of the project as well, right? So when I look at this project from the textbook, I think it is a classic kind of language learning project. It's not really a STEM project or an interdisciplinary project, but there's that potential of integrating some content into it, and it makes it even more interesting. I know that it is challenging, and we have heard about project-based, task-based, content-based, problem-based, and somehow if we can integrate the different elements there, it will be very interesting, because the thing is that we cannot use language in a vacuum. We need to have the context or the content to anchor the language. So I agree with Ms. Hồng Dinh that if you have content to integrate into the project, it will make it even more interesting.
All right. I hope Ms. Hồng Dinh and Ms. And Dr. Linh Phung's answers has addressed the question of Ms. Phan Yin. Let me move on to the next question for Dr. Linh Phung from Teacher Nguyễn Thành Tín. I wonder how to build an effective rubric to evaluate all levels of students in a certain class.
Yeah, I'm not sure what is meant by all levels there. I guess that the students have different skills, different levels of proficiency. So actually, I have had quite a few projects in my teaching. I didn't share about them, but one of the biggest projects that I have had with students is a research project, really an authentic research project, when they had to design a survey, they had to collect data, they have to analyze data, they have to calculate the means and all those kind of things, and then they have to write a report and present a report. So what I did was that I told the students that I would evaluate the quality of the whole paper, but I would also ask each student to write a section of the paper. Maybe one student is in charge of the literature review, another student is in charge of the method section and the finding section, and then I evaluate the individual students as well. The rubrics really depend on the goals, right? The learning goals that you have. So for example, describing or writing or discussing, if you want to evaluate students' ability to discuss, you're going to have to do it during the process of the project. But if you just want to evaluate the products, then you can build a rubric around it. I don't know if I have a specific suggestion in terms of students at the different proficiency level. Maybe you have to look at the objectives of the course and the requirements from the school to make that decision. So I know that perhaps I don't have a satisfactory answer here, but I can think more about that and perhaps get back to you in terms of students at different levels.
I can add to that. So yeah, like whatever the expectation that you want for the final product, you can base that, for example, if they speak without stopping a lot, fluently, then can be level 4. So when you do the rubric, like you address all of the levels in that rubric already. So if, like, for example, if but like in my case, like if I have ESOL students, the way that we do rubric is a little bit different. We do a lot of modifications. So for example, if a student like cannot read and write fluently, then they can just like do verbal answer to you. So if you can take out some of the categories or some of the criteria in your rubric to meet the needs of your students. So for example, if it's a 5 for the content of like the high levels, then for those that are not that yet at the high level, then you can you can lower that that a little bit. Like instead of 5, like if they have a 3, then it's still like passing or successful. So it really depends on your expectation and how you vision the final product is like. And then you can always like modify and adjust the scale or the rubric itself, the scale itself. I hope it helps.
Right, thank you, Ms. Hồng Đinh. All right. So thank you, Ms. Hồng Đinh and Dr. Linh Phùng. Let me just move on to the next question. We are having more and more questions here. So the next question is from Ms. Linh Đỗ. I really want to spend time helping students to apply what they have learned during the units, but we don't have time for any projects. How many periods that you think is enough for a project at the school?
So as we talked earlier about doing project, it doesn't mean that you have to have separate days for project day. You don't have that luxury of time. Very different than in here in the US, in a STEM school or in a STEAM magnet school, they do have build days built in their school hours. So for example, on day 2 of second week of the project, they do have one day just like build their prototype, do the projects, cut and paste, gluing, practicing speaking and things like that. But that is STEM school or STEAM school. In the case of like my school or other school, which is not a STEM focused school, or like in school in Vietnam, for example, all the subjects are taught like separately, then you can just like try to do the project in a very flexible way. So for example, I don't know what subject you teach. Are you like elementary or middle school or high school teacher? But in if you have an elementary school teacher, maybe it's easier for you to integrate. For example, the lesson in science, you can combine like math and language arts in there. Now, if you are teaching a subject, like specific subject in middle school, high school, then you can work with other teachers, ask them to be part of the project. So like whatever the lesson that relating to your project that you want to do, share that with them, share the idea. You can write the lesson plan together and implement it together. So it doesn't have to be like all by yourself, just do the project. So if I know more about your role, like, and what position that you have, then I may have more specific answer, but that is just my suggestion. Like you can integrate it into like different periods during the day. It doesn't have to be like specific, like, oh, I need to spend just like half an hour just do project. No, when you teach students do something or do a task or an activity, that is doing project already. So maybe the most challenging thing is just like find a time to do sharing so everyone can share their product. Like
yeah,
finding the time to.
Yeah, I understand that it is actually, it's an important question because I mentioned task-based language teaching before, and even with shorter tasks, some teachers still say that they don't have time to do tasks in the classroom because assessment depends on students' demonstration of their grammatical knowledge or their vocabulary. So class time is often dedicated to teaching those discrete linguistic items. So I know that it is a challenge, but if we want to kind of move away a little bit from the traditional teaching to develop students' communicative competence, perhaps that we need to find more time. But from my experience, the project that I mentioned among my English language students at my university, I actually spent 4 weeks with them, 5 hours a week to do that research project because I don't like superficial projects and I want them to do something really well. So it does take time, but perhaps I think that the project that I just suggested to you, just based on what I see from the textbook, perhaps it takes a few classes, a few periods as well, and you can spread them out into different weeks. It doesn't have to be done within a week. So I agree, it's gonna take some time. And I think that big change really depends on how the curriculum is structured. But with dedication, I'm sure that you can make something happen like Ngoan or I know Annie has shared some of her projects as well. Just to share a little bit more, I'm teaching a US culture course and I also plan for the students to do a poster presentation. But again, that is just the product and I don't want them to do something superficial with just slapping some pictures on posters and then putting some text. It has to be an investigation into an issue or like an inquiry or a research into something to find deeper understanding of US culture and other cultures. So it's just how I do it. I spend a lot of time guiding the students and I expect really good products from the students as well.
Right, thank you, Dr. Linh Phùng and Miss Hồng Dinh. I keep seeing more and more interesting questions. So, all right, the next question from teacher Lê Thiện Phước, and this question is again about building a rubric. So can you talk a bit more about how to create a rubric for a speaking skill project? Do we just evaluate speaking skill at the end of the project, or we evaluate students' speaking skill during the process as well?
maybe Ngoan can answer that question. She has a very specific rubric.
Okay. Can you hear? Mr. Ferg, in terms of speaking projects, you have a presentation or video making. So different projects, you have the different kind of rubrics. The video making, rubric I just show you, right? So you can because you asked me for the PowerPoint slides, so I will send you later. And presentation will have the rubric as well. And I think that we assess them during the process. Yeah, because if it's maybe let's say you could just we just not just evaluate the products, but just maybe process. It's a yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Ms. Wanfa. Right, let's move on to the next question. And this is a very interesting question from Ms. Đào Thúy Nga from Sơn La, who are interested in collaborating project about culture of ethnic minority Thai people. So if teachers, if you're interested in this topic, just feel free to contact Ms. Đào Thúy Nga. Right. Let me just move on to the next question for Ms. Hồng Đinh. And this is from Mrs. Teacher Nguyễn Thị Như Thảo. Where can we get the ideas for PBL?
Thanks for the question. So it really depends on so like the test or the unit that you are doing. May I know like what grade that you're teaching? Is it elementary or middle school or high school? So I can give you some very specific example. I don't know if Ms. Newtown is still here in the Zoom.
Ms. Newtown, are you in the Zoom?
Because if I know what subject that you're teaching or what grade level that you're teaching, then I can give very specific example.
Yeah. In the room. I mainly teach English in primary school.
Oh, okay. So English in primary school. So is it like first grade, kindergarten, third, second, or like all of the grade level in K5?
From K3 to K5.
Oh, okay. So for example, if you teach English lesson, so every topic is like an unit, right? Is it about like school, or is it about food, or is it about traveling? So for example, if you're teaching an unit about food, then you can have a project about like they can prepare a food, a very simple meal with like basic ingredients, or maybe like prepare a mixture, I mean like a salad. So it depends on like what unit that you're doing right now. For example, what unit that you're doing. So every single unit you can come up with a PBL idea. So think about the whole unit, like what is the focus, and then you can develop the PBL ideas from those units or very specific topic. So for example, right now in our third grade classroom, we learning about frogs. So they can do a poem about frogs, rhyming poems, free verse poem. They can write a pourquoi tell, or like a narrative fiction story. So it depends on what class that you're teaching. For example, if you do project with a fifth graders, then they can write a speech about the topic that you are covering in class. Like the products for the English language learning, it's so diverse. It can be like a brochure, a flyer, a movie, a presentation, a Google Slides. it can be in any format, and then you can grade or like have the rubric or checklist with like did they use past tense if it's that's the topic that you're learning, or did they use present tense, future tense, did they use adverbs, adjective, description in their writing or in their product. So it depends on the topic that you're doing in class, and think about the timeline, like do you have time, can you manage it, like you can condense the lesson, and then you can have like specific day so they can present or do the project.
Okay, so I got the point. Thank you so much. I have many ideas now.
Okay, great. And please get back to me, share with me again, see how you implement it, and then let's see how it goes. And I'm really interested in hearing more about it later on. I'm super excited. Just let me know.
Yes, so grateful to that.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you, Ms. Hồng Đinh and Ms. Nguyễn Như Thảo for your very interesting question. The next question is from teacher Nguyễn Ánh. Can students speak Vietnamese when they discuss and do teamwork? Because they can meet, there might be worse in situations they don't know how to express. And especially for young learners, they will remain quiet if I don't let them speak in Vietnamese.
That question is for me, right? I can answer that in because as I said earlier in the introduction, our school have the dual the DLI dual language immersion program, and they do use Spanish to explain the concepts to them. So yeah, using the first language in the situation that is confusing or challenging to them is fine. It's completely fine. Yeah, when they work together, if words that you do not understand, they can use their native language to solve the problem. At the same time, you will teach them how to communicate effectively without using the native language. For example, in our class, and it is I did mention that in my writing about critical thinking. So when you teach kids critical thinking, it's about provide them with tools and resources instead of answers. So instead of like they did not know the words, you can tell them that, oh, how about look it up on Google, use the dictionary, spell it out, ask a friend, try the spelling. So like you teach them the strategies and resources, provide them the resources and tools, but you do not like tell them the answer. So so just like use every opportunity as a teaching moment. And yeah, in the beginning you will let them use Vietnamese, yeah, but at the same time gradually you will give them resources to stay away from that and just use the target language, which is English. But in our school, like for the DLI classroom, we do let the student use Spanish to understand the concept, but the assessment piece, like at the end, the test, they do have to take the test in English.
Yeah, I can address that a little bit because that question also came up when Rod Ellis presented about task-based language teaching. So yes, some Vietnamese is okay, but all Vietnamese is not. I think that kind of defeats the purpose of project-based. We want students to work together so that they have the opportunities to use the target language more. So one way of thinking about this is that, again, you have to develop tasks that are at their level. So let's just say if they have to describe pictures, then and they have some vocabulary already, and then because the task outcome is really clear, they have to exchange ideas, there's information gap, then there is a reason to communicate in the target language. So you can think about that as well. But I also think that it is okay to use some Vietnamese, and it is okay for teachers to also use some Vietnamese strategically, right? But not all the time, because that's going to defeat the purpose of project-based learning for ELT in particular, because output is very important, and interaction is very important. And I can see that in the Vietnamese context, as well as in other EFL contexts, perhaps students lack opportunities to speak English. So that's how I hope that the suggestion is helpful in terms of developing tasks at their level.
Thank you.
Talking about tasks, I kind of forgot to pitch my app that I actually, because of my passion with task-based language teaching, I actually developed a task-based app with over 500 tasks that students can complete in pairs and on their own. And the tasks meet all the 4 criteria so that they have a reason to communicate, and there's enough support for them so that they can also successfully complete in English. And I'm trying to reach a global base of users. So hopefully students, when they get there, they will get to talk with students from other countries as well. So I just want to share that very quickly and encourage you to check it out. Okay. Is there any more question?
I think I just saw one. Right?
Oh, yes. We still have more questions. So let me just move on. The next question is for Miss Quan Phạm. And this is from Miss Vân Nguyễn. I think of a project that links a lot of English teachers, students to collaborate and work together in different parts of Vietnam. Can you suggest me a specific aspect?
Thanks for Miss Vân Nguyễn. Are you here? Hello, Miss Vân Nguyễn.
Miss Vân Nguyễn, are you?
Yes, I'd like to answer the question. Yes, it depends on the writing. So I have two options for writing and speaking course. For speaking, I think you can choose the destination, the tourist destination, and you can let them introduce about this destination. For example, they choose Đà Lạt, so they can have a video introducing the beauty places in Đà Lạt. Yeah, and for writing course, you can let them draw the poster, postcard I just mentioned. Okay, so Miss Vân, because these different courses, they have different kind of projects. Yeah, and you understand this, Vân? Okay.
Okay, I got that. Right, thank you very much.
Yeah,
I can give some ideas too. So like in the US, we do have like pen pals. So you can do that in Vietnam, like have your students write the letters to their student in different provinces or cities, and write about their daily life, write about their classroom, about their friends, about their family. So do pen pal, like ask other. And I did have the chance to connect with 2 classrooms in Vietnam, and we did like Padlet, and we share like pictures and questions, and a lot of the information that's really interesting and cute. So you can do pen pal with their classroom around Vietnam, or you can have their student do research. I don't know what subject that you teach, but like you can have them like do research about if you teach like science, then you can do question about like, oh, how there's particular tree is used in a particular area or region. Or if you teach like I don't know, like English, then you can talk about like how are there a lot of like English centers in their area or city, how English is taught in your classroom, and they just like can connect with other places around Vietnam. So a lot of ideas if you do like a pen pal, do like a project that like just choose one item that like maybe a lot of like places have, and then just have them share their different things that they do with the items, something like that.
Yes, it's lovely to get the suggestion from you. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Vân Nguyễn, Ms. Hồng, and Dr. Linh Phùng. Right, the next question is from Ms. Big. This question is from Ms. Hồng Đinh. How about English for specific purpose?
So English for specific purpose, I don't quite understand the question. How do you rephrase it? Miss Big, are you still here? What do you mean by English for specific purpose? You mean like teach them in an English classroom?
I guess it
like...
can be English for business or English for engineering. I think actually project-based learning may be really helpful for if students learn English for those specific purposes. Then maybe projects can come from some real life issues in their field or in their discipline. And that is one of my suggestions as well, that maybe you can find inspiration from problems in the community. And Ms. Hồng Đinh already mentions a lot of kind of really authentic problems or issues that students can solve, right, in the community. So with English for specific purposes, I think that can be a really good direction as well, so that students not only develop their English skills, but also their disciplinary knowledge and vocabulary or technical language as well.
Yeah, like for example, in Vietnam, I know that in central Vietnam, there's a lot of floods during the flood season. It's really bad. So like some of the classes, like during the English classes, they can talk about the problem, like how the children get to school and how do you solve that. And they can use English to talk about the problem, discuss the problem, do the research information about how children around the world, like what do they do when there's a flood. So yeah, like any problems that around their lives and very relating to their daily life, their own specific problems that they see every day, that can be a PBL idea.
All right, I hope the answers are from Dr. Linh Phùng and Ms. Hồng Đinh are close with the expectations of Ms. Big. Right, let me just move on to the next question. This is from our Facebook live stream. This is also from Ms. Hồng Đinh, from teacher Võ Đức Duy. The first question, học kiểu Mỹ tại nhà, is it for free?
Yeah, the fan page is free. You can access the information anytime. It's just fan page, so all the information is shared publicly, and there's a lot of information about education in US general, and very particularly about the elementary levels and all the strategies for STEM and gifted, because that is my endorsement, and also ESOL. So yeah, the access to the information is free. It's a fan page, a Facebook fan page.
Yeah, I think the fan page has a lot of valuable information for the teachers. All right, and the next question also from teacher Võ Duy. It is easy to engage all students to take part in STEM projects proactively. Would you give some tips to encourage them to do proactively? How to evaluate all students' skills?
So for particular STEM project, in order to engage the student, again, it has to come from the real context, like whatever they are doing, whatever they're seeing in their daily life. So for example, if our school doing a fundraising about chocolate, and if it's during the summer season or like in the hot season and the chocolate is very easy to melt, then you can come up with a question about like how you protect, like create like a bag, some kind of like container to put the chocolate in so it's not melted under the hot sun. So again, it has to come from the real life, and it has to be relevant. And another way to make the student engage is give them, we call it student voice and choice. So give them choices to like choose a group, or give them choices to choose the product, the way that they can express their ideas or their thinking. So give them student voice and choice, give them chance to talk to each other, to collaborate, to think together, to come up with ideas. So give the students voice and choice is a great way to engage everyone. And another way, the third way to engage students in a STEM project is group them not homogeneously but heterogeneously. That means like you group students at different levels so they can help each other out, because if they cannot do it, they will feel like I talked about self-esteem earlier, about the benefits, the why of PBL. So you have to group the students in a way that the low one can learn from the high one, and everyone can help each other out. Everyone can have their own strength and contribute in some way to the project. So that's at least like 3 ways that you can make everyone engaged in the STEM project.
All right. Yeah. Well, actually, that question was also the last question that we have today. Thank you very much, all the guest speakers, Dr. Linh Phùng, Miss Hồng Đinh, and Miss Quan Phạm, for a very productive webinar today. We have received a lot of questions and have learned a lot of valuable lessons. So that brings us to the very end of our webinar. And in the chat box, you can see that Miss Kindly has sent the link to fill in, and so you can get an e-certificate. So don't miss this opportunity. Okay, so we have spent a very wonderful morning with the projects, with the topic of project-based learning in our classroom. Before we finish our webinar, I'd like to say thank you all the teachers and the speakers for their participation and attention. And after the webinar today, if you have any questions, you can always connect to our speakers on their Facebook fan page or on their Gmail. And so the recording of our webinar will be posted on VTA website very soon. Yeah, I think it's time we have to say goodbye. I really hope to see you soon in the next webinar. Wish you a nice weekend and goodbye. Thank you, all the teachers and speakers.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Have a wonderful Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And yeah, it's very early Sunday morning now in Atlanta. Thank
almost
you.
1 a.m. Thank you.
Yeah, almost 1 a.m.
Almost 1 a.m. Sorry, it's so late.
Yeah, 1 a.m. Sunday morning. Thank you so much. And yeah, I really hope that I will hear back from some of you with the implementation of some of the ideas from the webinar. And you always can reach me through Facebook page Hồng Đinh or the fan page Học Tiếng Mỹ tại Nhà. And of course with Dr. Linh Phùng with page as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I share a lot of events around the world as well. So I hope to get connected with you through different events in the future. Have a good Sunday.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye everyone. Thanks everyone. Bye.